All right, you're gonna get, can you mute yours?
I am muted.
Okay.
Okay.
And we're gonna get going here in a second. The update is still going.
No worries.
But we're gonna go ahead and start. And I see we have another guest, Elizabeth, joining virtually as well. So welcome. And as soon as we can, we'll turn it over to the main camera in the room, and then you'll be able to see everyone. But the first item that we have up, I'm gonna go ahead and let Hillary get us going on the fun parts. Minutes.
Welcome to the February 24th, 2025 Connected City Advisory Board meeting. I'm opening the meeting now, and we'll approve the motion to approve the minutes now. Second by Commissioner Miller. All those in favor say.
And who was the first?
Oh, it was first,
Okay,
Commissioner.
Katie. Okay. Gotcha. Yes, I gotcha.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Okay.
So it looks like we have all eyes, including our remote joiner.
Okay.
Remote is Ryan Renza. As soon as this thing finishes, we'll be able to see everybody here in a minute. But I can show everybody here. Here, Ryan, you can say hi to everyone.
Hi, folks.
Came out here early and then realized there was a host that had to start the meeting and it couldn't be me, so it made it a little complicated. So
Here, very good.
okay. All right.
There
There we go.
Melissa has seen the carbon copy, but there are basically three proposals for the capital improvement plan for bikeways. And then a fourth proposal, which not a capital improvement one, you didn't really know where to send it. There doesn't seem to be any city provision, but it's a proposal for a staff position, a hiring position for a bicycle transportation coordinator. Portland, Oregon became the premier bicycle city in the country when Meadowbrook became their first bicycle transportation coordinator. She then went on to write the NACTO guide, and she was chair and CEO of Alka Planning. She got her start in getting Portland on the map. That's what makes bicycle transportation work. When you have somebody who is focused on it, focused not on just planning. You know, we have plans and plans coming out the ears, but somebody who implements the plan, somebody who oversees all the silos and pulls the departments together. So that's one of the main proposals. We don't know where it's going in the budget because there's no formal way to put it. The projects, the main one that we're looking at, oh, there are three, but bicycle protected lanes on Tennessee and Kentucky. This has been a corridor that's been thought about and talked about and looked at for years. In 2027, it's scheduled for mill and overlay from 6th Street to 19th Street. So what Sustainability Action likes to do is use synergy. We don't propose something that might fit into a particular niche in the plans. We look for these synergy connections. Like 9th Street, we proposed a restriping and re-lane allocation for the Jayhawk Watershed Project. So that's happening when they do mill and MSO, it is mill and overlay there. So that's what we're proposing for Tennessee and Kentucky. Steve Lashley, in charge of that, has given us a lot of information, nice collaboration. We think that's great just of itself. The other two are projects that we submitted for the 2024 CIP that didn't get funded. The Atchison Creek Trail, where the Evergy Moose substation is, and South Iowa bicycle track from Lawrence Loop to 31st Street, which could be built in conjunction with the bridge that KDOT's doing over Iowa Street, another synergy. So if you happen to get that in your agenda somewhere, that's what they're all about, and we appreciate you giving that some thought.
I wanted to let you know, I did not receive any email from you, but if you did it through the CIP submission portal online, Dave and his staff will get it.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
there, we submitted them to
Okay.
CIP.
That's
The
good.
deadline's passed.
Yeah, it was Friday.
Yeah.
No, we're good. As
You
long-
didn't get it,
I
sent it
did
on
not.
Saturday. Wow.
Yeah, it's not showing up in here, so.
Is the address for this KVONACHEN?
That's That's me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I sent it on Saturday to that address and.
Okay.
Anyway.
We'll look for it, and if not, I'll reach out. I know how to find it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I just forwarded it to you, Melissa,
Oh,
because he sent it to
It's
directly.
not the thing, yeah,
okay, thank you.
good, okay. I know my computer's over.
Yeah, I'm like.
It's upgraded.
Yeah. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah.
Are there any other?
Yeah, be careful, Michael.
I promise.
public comments?
My first time to the meeting, so kind of observing.
Welcome, great, welcome.
Thank you.
You don't have to give public comment. My job is to open it up.
Is this the only opportunity for public comment
No.
tonight?
Well, people can give general public comment right now, and we also open it up for public comment after each agenda item too. So if you'd like to comment on an agenda item, there's also space. Comments online?
Ryan, could you hear us okay? Someone?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome.
When the.
Okay, great. Then we will move on to the next item, which is
Thank you.
agenda item 1, and we'll hear from Dave about the 2025 construction projects.
All right, so attached to the agenda is our construction preview for 2025. Michael Deos and our communication department helped put this together. Just supposed to be simple, yet also provide just basic information on some visible projects that are gonna be going on this year. Our engineering group has a lot going on in this project, with you that are we highlight them, well, especially public here this year. As you can see, on the second page is some of the projects. They've also got core projects have pages and QR codes now, so you can kind of go to those locations for more information. But just kind of a summary of some of the ones that we've got on here. The Jayhawk Watershed Project. So I know this, the Multimodal Transportation Commission was involved in reviewing that project with the reconfigured streets. Should be starting here in March. It is the bid house ready to gear up. And that project will go into 2026. And if there's any, feel free to stop any questions about any of these. But I don't know if there's any other information that I wants to know about the project. But again, on the website, you can see kind of the way project is phased in. The contractor begins the work, will be putting updates on the webpage. The Maple Lane reconstruction project, it's a big project that we're kind of grown a little bit in scope, that we're doing a corridor concept, we're doing storm sewer, sanitary sewer, street improvements. Coming back and doing some sidewalk gap on 19th Street, which we originally planned to do on the east project, east of Harper and O'Connell, but so we're coming back, finishing that, tidying that up, as with traffic calming on 19th Street as well. That project is going to start here very soon, and there'll be multiple phases, and that goes into the summer of 2026, multiple phases. So there'll be some traffic impacts as particularly the work gets to 19th Street. So
Sorry, did you say traffic calming or did I just hear what I wanted to hear?
Traffic calming.
yes,
For Maple Lane?
on 19th Street.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Sorry.
Was
That's like
originally
me.
discussed with the 19th Street project from Harper to O'Connell.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to put it in and rip it out and so there's some sidewalk gap as well that is getting done with that project. The middle section is a lot of the sidewalk multimodal transportation projects that we've got going on this year. So to start off, the Tennessee project between 9th and 14th Street. I think that's a CDBG grant project. Redoing sidewalks, ADA ramps. That corridor, the 6th Street shared use path, Lawrence Avenue to Castle Drive. So they were extending that, trying to keep working to the west of that shared use path there on the north side of the street. That project, I think we just got the approval to go ahead and bid that project from KDOT. I think the TA project. So that project we expect to start here this summer, be done this year. Osdale sidewalk project, it's a safe routes to school project. Been working with KDOT on that one as well. So filling in some gap sidewalks there, 19th and 26th Street. And then the next two projects, the Connecticut Street ADA project, 9th to 12th, and the East 12th, New Hampshire to Oregon Street projects are we're just redoing sidewalks, ADA ramps. It's kind of part of our new ADA transition plan, and programmed monies from that plan. So that project is under design now and should be here this fall. We're replacing the traffic signal 19th and Tennessee, and we're doing some ADA ramps there at that intersection as well. And then two other large road reconstruction projects, the Iowa Street project from 23rd Street to Irving Hill Road Bridge. Should be starting this week, hopefully. I'll finally get a break in the weather. We're gonna get going on that. So there'll be a project that will impact traffic and be going through this whole year, whole calendar year. Hopefully get done here. We'll plan this late this year. So that project, we're mainly reconstructing the pavement. We're also extending the shared use path on the west side of Iowa up to Billings. And making some repairs to the shared use path south of 19th Street. There's some drainage issues in there that we're gonna fix with that project. And then Bob Billings, Castle to Monterey Way. It's a major rehab project, reconstructing the pavement and redoing sidewalks, putting a shared use path in on the north side of Bob Billings. And should be having a open house public meeting, I think, here relatively soon, working on getting field check plans in that project. So that project should be starting here later this year, and that would go into 2026. So then the final thing on our flyer is the South Lawrence Traffic Way project. So we get a lot of questions about that, but we have to kind of send those to Kate out if there's any questions with us. Going to be rolling traffic impacts as they get going on work on interchange of the 27th Street, 27th and the walk through, so Clinton Parkway. So a lot of work going on there as well. So if there's any questions on any of those projects or any other ones,
So I see that there's a better crosswalk coming on Bob Billings. I often see people crossing.
At the transit center.
yeah. That's not part of this project, but we've identified that as a need to put in some type of crossing improvement. So I know that's getting if you're familiar with our non-motorized prioritization project list, we got some projects that get scored and we use some of those program dollars on that. That's one of the ones that could be at on the list, it might be pretty high. And we're looking for ways to do it because we know it's an issue that's a lot of people cross that.
Yeah, as long as you're thinking about that crossing design when you're working on something.
Yeah, this project that's listed for reconstruction is west of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not in the same corridor. But when we do those corridor projects, we look for opportunities to make crossing improvements if there's any that are identified. So, but
And the one you're referring to is part of that raise application that we talked about in December or
oh
November.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, too.
Yeah, so we're hoping that there's still hoping there may be federal funds for that at this point that would speed that one up significantly because it's quite a costly one. I think out of ones we've been looking at. The worst is 9th Street Hill, but yeah.
Personally, I'm just excited to see the north side of Bob Billings get better and bike that to work, and it's quite unsafe.
Oh, yeah.
There's like big gaps on the sidewalk and you're coming up and down these big hills and there's like
Speed.
3-inch gaps between the sidewalk, or it's called plates. Yeah, it's too narrow.
Very narrow.
It's very narrow and like there's shrubbery that comes out over, so there's hardly any space to ride. If anybody's walking, you're kind of forced into the road with traffic.
This is maybe a larger conversation that you might not have, I don't know if anybody has answers to it, but the city's been awarded. They've been awarded funding. I don't know that there's contracts that have been executed, but like the TA grant for Mass Street or Safe Streets for All, like there was a planning grant, and I don't know if the state's gonna open up an implementation grant cycle this year, but does the city have any idea what's happening with that at all?
As far as the Safe Streets for All, I expect that they would issue another call for projects for implementation, depending on, the federal funding stuff we don't control that, but
Right.
And there's still no president's budget out yet, so we're all waiting to see what that is when it drops.
But I think from our planning project, as we wrap that up, we can identify some priorities and say, hey, we've got the plan in place, now let's go after some funding.
Right.
So that's still, that process is still going.
Yeah.
It's something to get done, yes, we need.
Yeah.
So, no, that's certainly gonna be an opportunity for us, a good opportunity. And I think a lot of communities that had planning, that had done the planning grant or whatever, have the plan in place, have been very successful in getting implementation money.
Yeah.
So whether it's a crossing somewhere or improved lighting or intersection improvements, like all those things, could certainly be things that we go after in the future. But then on Mass Street, it mentions that project in here because it's not a 25 project, but we're under contract now with the designer to do design plans this year in 25, do that project in 26, and that has the TA funding for the production.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we work on the design. Basically, implementing the design, the concept design that we approved.
And so we don't have those funds in hand.
No,
Yes. So that's the next challenge on that one.
yeah.
Actually receiving the funding.
Yeah, the TA, some of it, I think we can use some of the funds for design so we can get reimbursed along the way. We have approved agreements for the funds,
Mhm.
and so yeah, so.
I mean, it's with the state, right? All these grants are with the state.
They're through the state, so they're federal
The state's
dollars,
passed through.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The state allocates the federal dollars that they get,
Mhm.
so the state basically awards the project with the federal dollars.
Okay, so it's a pass through. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The state has very little real dollars for these types of investments. Most of them like we take from KDOT is federal pass through.
Yeah. Okay.
The state streets were all like directly with the federal
Mm.
FHWA, which is unique. It's the first time we had directly with the FHWA in KDOT, so that's different. But,
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything of like some of those programs going away or reduced funding of those.
Okay. Yeah, it's just. Where was I had on Maple Lane with the 19th Street? I was wondering on that. I should have this. So everybody can see. I pulled up the phasing here on this project. Yeah, it looks like is this like that section of 19th? Is that where those sidewalk improvements will be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the south side, where the gaps are at. So some of that may already have sidewalk, but there's some gaps in there close to, well, right.
Second one right there. Okay. Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Maple Lane, yeah. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Go ahead.
I have a couple things. First, I think it's an awesome resource. I don't think we've done anything quite like this before, right?
Nope,
Like
it's
show
new.
everything. I mean, I've seen the communication on the Facebook page has been going a lot stronger than it previously has been. So that's cool. And I think it's especially nice to call out the smaller kind of sidewalk ADA projects. Even if somebody's been on MMTC, Transportation Commission, Connected City for years, I would still get surprised when I was driving by, you know, say Tennessee and see a couple of new ADA ramps like, hey, cool, this is happening. Just things are happening. Whether we know where they are going or not. So it's nice here to see like where you can expect that they're going to happen. So it's kind of nice to see, you know, like preview and then see it in action. It's just better communication overall. Is this going to be handed out like as a pamphlet? It kind of looks like a trifold brochure.
Yeah, we actually, our comms person for MSO has been working really closely with Dave and his team. And that publication will be dropping in people's utility bills if you actually take an actual utility bill.
Nice.
If you don't, you may find them spattered around town. We're gonna really try to get them out to the business community through the chamber, because that's where we get a lot of questions coming in. But certainly, I mean, this is it's out there now and certainly circulate as a link. We just got access to the city's Nextdoor. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but we can now actually post to Nextdoor. We were so decentralized, we weren't centralized. I don't know how to explain this, but anyway, we're moving forward. Progress is in the right direction. And so this is something that we would definitely want to get out there and post on that. But the nice part is if you share it virtually, you can just click right in like Hillary did and go right into the project file that we have out on the web. So we're really trying to integrate our communications in ways that we should have been for a while now, but we're getting there, folks. We're getting there. So pretty excited to see this whole step forward. Dave, first time you've seen this here, right? And he's been here a lot longer than me.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is very nicely done.
Yeah, I think we were up to like what, version 16 before we finally decided.
There's much stuff on there, not too much stuff on there.
Yeah. Yeah, but these big corridor projects, there's no way we could explain it all, which is why it's nice to be able to drive folks if they really want more in depth to a website that has the integrated information from our mapping system and the plans and all that. So.
I do have a couple of questions.
QR.
Sorry. Sorry, didn't cut you off. I was curious more, I guess, on a MTC/Connected City Board process question in terms of just how, I guess, we hear about these. So the Maple Lane and Bob Billings one are kind of surprised to me. I haven't seen those before, at least before the commission or board or whatever we are now. And I think previously that was because Multimodal Transportation Commission was generally assumed that even though there are many modes to be multi, that it generally didn't include car stuff. So if it's just a car thing, then we weren't probably going to look at it. So I think that's why things like 6th Street didn't get brought before us, even though it did end up eventually being like a major sidewalk and crosswalk thing. I think that kind of changed probably mid-design, if I had to guess, or I don't know. But anyway, I guess my question is the deal with Maple and Bob Billings, are they similar in nature in that we're kind of stuck with the geometry that we have, so there's not really a lot of opportunity for multimodal improvements, and that's why they weren't brought to MMTC previously?
Defer that to city engineer.
Well, Maple Lane is primarily like underground or storm sewer, sanitary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which definitely wasn't in our scope.
And now we're wastewater, so I'm assuming.
Yeah,
But,
all of a sudden.
but since it does impact 19th Street,
Mm.
a lot, that was important to get that, out so people knew that was coming. And still doing multimodal improvements with it.
Mhm.
There's things that had already been, I won't say decided, but that we planned on doing already. And
That makes sense, but-
bus stops and sidewalk gaps. Bob Billings, I mean, that's a good question. It's the first project road reconstruction project that we've had since we've had the new board. And the city board. But as far as the scope of that is pretty simple. We're replacing pavement where it's at. We can't really change the grade of the road too much.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot of room there. So we're still planning the multimodal improvements with the shared use path.
Mhm. Were they on a street maintenance plan perhaps? Because I feel like that stuff sometimes does kind of slide under the radar because like it's just pavement condition that's going to be fixed. It's not like a full.
Bob Billings at bottom of that hill was on we can only hit the pothole repair so many times.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quickly.
So it's kind of beyond street maintenance. It's like full.
Yeah. It's been in the CIP for.
Yeah, as long as.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least that one I kind of thought I remember seeing. It's Maple that I don't recall seeing, but okay.
Maple kept growing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was sanitary, it was an issue in that neighborhood, and then the storm was the same problem with the rain, and then it's like we were doing all this work, we're gonna have to redo the road.
Well, redo the road. Yeah, that's probably why we never saw it because when it was in its main planning stages, it wasn't going to be in front of MMTC. So that makes sense.
Okay.
And the corridor approach that Dave mentioned, this is something that we're doing really successfully here. It's kudos to Dave and his team is looking at, if we're already making a mess, what do we have available to walk away for 20 to 30 years?
Right.
And that will be in the quote for the guy who was taking the picture earlier, because that's exactly what I said. It's like, it gets us out of an area for a longer period of time than if we just deal with the most pressing issue and walk away. We may leave a road that's been patched so much that it's, a pain to drive on 2 years later. So, I think this is a good thing that we've been able to bring those funds to him and have the team of engineering folks be able to layer things to get the best out of an area. So yes, so you will see this happen.
Mhm.
So I'm not able to predict how these will grow at this point, but going
Right.
forward, because you'll get to see more as we move into the CIP this spring.
Yeah.
You'll start to see more areas where those types of corridors are gonna happen or grow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think all the reasons given for why it wasn't brought before MMTC do make sense. So not like upset about it or anything. I was just kind of curious, like how will this change going forward and kind of how I predicted, since it involves other pieces of infrastructure, it's definitely going to be involved. So,
Yep.
Okay. The other one I had was about the 12th Street project. So I assume that there's a ton of smaller street corridors that have sidewalks in a similar condition. Did this go to the top of the list just because of the NMPPP essentially?
Yeah, that was one of the ones that was higher up in
That's interesting.
in the matrix of the use.
I guess there's probably, when the sidewalk condition assessment was happening, there was probably a couple of full blocks or quarters that like, this whole thing is just totally messed up. Like, it doesn't make sense necessarily to have like an individual homeowner fix something when there's like 20 homes in a row that are all messed up. So this probably was one of those, I'm assuming. That was just,
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty much wholesale replacement of all this loft that's existing.
do the funds for the replacement come from just the normal, I guess, would it be the capital improvement plan budget, or is anything leveraged from property owners like the rest of the sidewalk repair stuff?
There is, so it's our sidewalk improvement program kind of evolved in from, I guess, the last year of the sidewalk improvement program as it was called or whatever.
The original.
In 2024, but going into 2025, we're still working on 2024 sidewalks, but 2025 is kind of the ADA transition plan where some of the same city monies for ADA ramp improvements. There was a program or project in CIP for brick sidewalk replacements that got rolled in. And the city funding for replacing city infrastructure that had damaged sidewalks that were still, all those program funds are rolled in to the new program. We're still doing inspections, and if there were deflections or responsibilities that would be the homeowners, they're still responsible for that share of the repair. I would say, like, as the program has evolved, from what I heard last, about 85% of the sidewalk replacement is city funded, so it's a very large portion, it's a smaller portion.
That's almost entirely
private
residential.
responsibilities, because there's just so much of the infrastructure and that the city's taking responsibility for. So it's kind of, I think that hopefully answers your question, but it's kind of just a little, not the next evolution of the sidewalk improvement program.
Just out of curiosity, because I feel like this would be something that the public would be interested in knowing about. There's a lot of consternation when this thing was first put together, like 2018, 2019. I forget when the sidewalk replacement improvement plan came to be. But, for a while, it was like, you're on the hook for paying for this, even though you didn't choose to have it, and you can't take it away or replace it, and everybody was kind of up in arms. So there was various concessions to, if you have two frontages, then, if you're low income, there's various waivers. I guess I'm surprised to see that there's so much of a waiver for this one, because it's almost all residential, unless they're all damaged by city street trees. And then I can see how that would be like the city's problem. But how do you tell, I guess, on a quarter such as this, which is homeowner responsibility and which is the city responsibility? What's the cutoff, I guess?
Yeah, we have criteria, so we go out and walk in and do inventory, and then a lot of it's pretty evident what's done caused by street trees or storm sewer.
And street trees are almost always the city's jurisdiction. Because no, some of them are like plum trees, like the city would plant a plum tree in the streets.
Yeah, if it's a tree in the right of way.
Okay.
That's what's caused the sidewalk to be or whatever break, then we take responsibility for those.
Okay. I feel like that would be a good thing to tell the public, just as a personal recommendation, because I mean, that's a huge contribution from the city that I think is what people were clamoring for early on. And I forget who was in charge previously. It's like, sorry, it's the way it is. That's what the state makes us do. And it sounds like it's now a better deal for the homeowner than it used to be, which is a good thing. I mean, it's always nice to share good news. So
Yeah.
just a suggestion.
But I'd say more, I think the percentage of the city funding is gone.
Yeah.
Than when the program started, but Evan Corianta, our AD, manager, is overseeing the program now, funding.
Is that the official name? For the umbrella program, it's now the ADA transition plan is for all the sidewalks?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
He's getting the calls now.
Okay.
But yeah, there's still people that, planning to contribute or pay for their portion of sidewalk, but it's still kind of using the same process before. But yeah, on these projects, they'll be pretty much tearing out blocks at a time, and instead of just piecemealing. Segments, but they're both of these, I think, are in the brick sidewalk permissive area. So if a homeowner, going back to the brick policy that the MTC saw last year, if a homeowner wanted to go back with brick, they could at the cost, additional cost. And I don't know if there's any on these that will or not. Yeah, I haven't heard, but
Is the city required to, I forget the details. Okay, so the city's gonna replace brick with concrete then? Because it's not the brick required zone, right?
it's, yeah, it's not the, it's permissive.
I'm sure that was a little bit more detailed than that, but I just feel like it's pulling together a lot of threads from the history of MMTC that are all kind of coming together here. Okay, that's all I had. So let me talk.
Any other comments from commissioners, questions? Any public comment?
I would like to, Michael Allman. I'm really excited. 19th and Maple Lane is in my neighborhood. Really excited to see that project coming forward. First of all, from a stormwater position, because some of our, I don't know what percent, but a big chunk of our neighborhood is in the 100-year floodplain. But I want to thank you, David, for doing this synergy with the 19th Harper to O'Connell and holding off on those components until now. Because you're very smart, I think, to delay that, to create the synergy for now when this is happening. I have a question though on at 19th and Maple Lane, and for that matter at Harper, there are bus stops, as you know. How is that being coordinated for the physical space with the stormwater inlets, which may or may not be moved, where the bus stops and the shelters, they want to do shelters, I know. How is that being coordinated? That's my first question. I have a second question that you may or may not want to get to. It's in retrospect on the 6th Street reconstruction from Folks Road to Massachusetts Street, basically 3 miles. And that corridor, somewhere MMHEC was looking at shared use path from Monterey all the way into Wisconsin Street, because the shared use path west of Monterey is there, but not east. So when 6th Street was done, shared use path was built, but only from Lawrence to Wisconsin. So what about the section from Lawrence to Monterey Way? Is that scheduled at any point?
Well, the Lawrence to Castle is, gonna be built this summer.
Oh, okay.
So that was a TA, KDOT Transitional Terms project. It didn't exactly align with the other related projects to do it all at the same time, but so, but I guess there'll still be the gap from Castle to Monterey Way.
Yeah.
So
That'd be another phase.
yeah, that's on our list of projects. I can't remember if that one's on the funded list or not, but.
The legal village.
But yeah,
What about these bus stops on 19? What do you?
I would have to pull up the plans, to, I guess, understand more exactly where they're at or what they're.
Well, there's one on the northeast corner of 19th and Maple Lane, and one on the southwest corner. I think that's the right corners. And then, of course, at Harper, there's one on the southwest corner. The bus going the other direction is around the corner.
It says here that there'll be a new bus stop near the intersections of 19th and Harper. I'm looking at the fact sheet right now. Yeah, it's Harper.
You want to sound like Maple Lane too.
If it's a shelter or not?
Well, that's a good question. Our neighborhood has requested shelters. I don't know if you recall, we were thinking of doing a grant application through neighborhood.
CDBG.
CDBG, yes.
Okay.
It didn't happen. Anyway, but we brought it up there as well. But I just appreciate you, but you need to answer my question. I'll just look into it.
Yeah, we can, follow up. Send you that. But yeah, we've been coordinating on this portal project with Transit too, to put in their standard shelters or improvements or whatever. Whatever they need for that stop, so.
Yeah. Shelter would take, I think it's a 6 foot by 15 foot pad, something of that size. That's what, if they want to do a shelter.
Okay, we'll have to find out. if we're doing it.
Any other comments?
Well, I was wondering, is there like any way that they can lower the speed limit for the cars to make it safer for cyclists and pedestrians? It seems like they've done this, or I've kind of been doing this in other cities and it's worked out well. We do a lot of biking and walking, and especially on 23rd Street, there's on Naismith, there's a grocery store that we always go walking to, and we're always seeing people walk there, and the cars are they just drive really fast. It seems dangerous.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we haven't really looked at our arterial streets changing speed limits a whole bunch. Did lower the speed limits in all residential streets about 5 years ago to 25. Really, there are studies that have been done that the speed limit should be signed at the what they call the 85th percentile speed of traffic, which is 85% of people drive at that speed or below, and that's the safest statistically. And so on some of the higher speed corridor, on some of the arterial streets, they're a little higher speed. Even if you sign them less, that doesn't mean people are going to drive less. They drive the speed they feel comfortable. And that could be based off of the volume of cars or just the number of lanes. And so it's a little tricky, and also it's tricky on Iowa and 6th Street with KDOT because those are state highways as well. And they're really strict for following those guidelines. So it's something that we haven't looked at a whole bunch, but we've done some studies and speed studies on some corridors, and they've been kind of close to what the posted speed was at. And just sometimes lowering arbitrarily would make it less safe. That doesn't sound right, but that's just the way that the engineering guidelines. That's the way they form this too, is basically based on the average speed or the 85th percentile speed. So, well, we do try to. I mean, the main thing we try to do on arterial streets is do lane width reductions that help slow traffic down. Then we haven't added a lot of through lanes to streets. We're still, most of our arterials are 5 lanes and not 6 or 7 lanes. So more volume speeds up, slow down a little bit, but higher volumes, but.
Well, and I was not to interject, but the consultant from Track, I think when he was presenting to us on the Jayhawk watershed project, he was saying like, he felt like industry wide, instead of like just posting lower limits, it was gonna shift towards designing roads for slower speeds, like you're saying.
Taking up less space.
Yeah. And I think, so there's this NUTCD, which is like the engineering manual, and I think that recently was revised, right?
It was, yeah.
And so I think that maybe a culmination of those things too. I know that that's maybe not, it's not a spot fix for where you're describing, but there are ways in which we can design safer roads, you know what I mean, rather than maybe posting speed.
Yeah, and like 9th Street with the lane reconfiguration and Mass Street too, we're going from 2 through lanes to 1. So you can't pass people, and you still could, but you're through lane, so you'll have the same volume on 1 lane versus 2. So that will have a much bigger impact than just going out and, okay, we're just gonna put a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit sign versus a 35. And people drive at the speed they feel comfortable unless it's enforced. We don't have sources of being enforcing the streets at all the time. So yeah, that was a good point. The design is more of an active like way to control speeds than just speed limits.
And then I was wondering too, does Lawrence have like any incentives to get people to ride their bikes more? Like I've heard of other cities doing tax credits and stuff and motivate people to use their bicycles and get rid of their cars.
I don't think we have anything like that. I know Denver has like used a curving tax over there to fund like their e-bike program. I've heard about it in other places, and I've looked at just in my own personal kind of using carbon reduction act money for something like that if it's possible. But there's nothing, there's nothing from the city. I'm just saying what I've seen in my very cursory review of how some other cities have funded for incentive programs like that. But we don't have.
There is the free transit fares.
Yes,
which
that's
is
true.
about the closest I think you could say
Yeah.
Free transit fares?
since 2022. Oh, wow.
Oh.
2023. I mean, they were only $1 at the beginning, but if you don't carry cash, that's easier. I would say just in general, sorry, I'm kind of speaking on a turn here, but it sounds like you have a lot of interesting ideas about transportation stuff. I think it would be good to maybe reach out to one of us, we'll put ideas, or some of us are usually open to like meeting for, offline if you want to kind of get more involved and stuff. So
Yeah.
just put it out there.
Yeah.
So we go on to the next.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't need to be rushing stuff.
And there's no motion that you need to take on this. It was just.
No, if you had any feedback on the design of the brochure or whatever.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, we've already done 16, we're gonna get 17th, right? I assume we're done.
Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 2. This is the balancing act. And are you leading this, Trevor, or Melissa?
I'm leading it, you get me, so. I just wanted to pull it up, and the reason that I brought this to you guys is the city is leaning more heavily into using this method with its residents to figure out sort of where to place priorities within our budget. In this particular instance, this year we're going in with a deficit of 6.5 million in our general fund. This is all very general fund related because it's the property tax levy account. But every one of you is welcome, if you live in town, to go ahead and fill this out and provide your feedback on how you would manage this deficit. So it's a little bit intensive. I know that a couple of you looked into it maybe today and went, ooh, no. But it is really good if you do click, let's say you're looking at safe and secure, and these little icons over here that are little information. That's what we're going to walk through tonight, just briefly with you guys on the connected city side. So you kind of understand the approach that we took to filling these out. Because I felt like it would be really beneficial to go over what we've done in this space. And so the first one here for us is on the ADA transition side. And if this isn't big enough, folks, let me know. I may have a hard time blowing it up, but wherever the flame is sitting is where we're currently as staff saying that we're sitting. And then each one of these to move up or down, they've assigned a dollar value to it in the software. So right now, we're sitting at what we consider a 2, which is on the low end. So I just want to clear because they gave us an employee survey that a 1 was the best and a 5 was the worst, which really confused people. But on this instance, 1 would be like barely meeting whatever minimal that we have to do, and 5 would be what we see as best practice for the city. So clearly, when we were at the commission last summer, we shared about our ADA plan, our right-of-way plan that they've been adopted, but we still haven't completed fulfilling the ADA. That has long since been, I think it was 2013 or 14 that you had to be fully in compliance. The law was adopted in 91. So we still have a lot of work to do. We're not the only community sitting in that spot, but I would say for as active of a community as we are, we're behind. And so that's why you see the number 2 popping up on here. I will say the commitment out of the governing body thus far is definitely towards completing the work that the community needs to do to get there. So, so anyway, just so you kind of understand how we got there on that one. And then the next one that we have up is our admin support. And just so you understand what we have in here, this is our back of house. And these are kind of really boring ones that we put out there, but it is how we do what we do with our team. Like Dave's folks, like, we get the invoices paid out of this group. Trevor's group relies on us, and the water wastewater side of the world pays in to this, as well as the property tax supporting side. So just to understand financially how we're structured. And then that's our communications person who did the little construction brochure for you guys. And then also our accreditation that we're part of, which means that we're developing best practices and recording how we're doing things and making sure that folks are getting appropriate level of training. And then our safety program, which was virtually non-existent when I started here almost 3 years ago. So big change on that. And Trevor and his staff, along with our staff in the general fund, have really taken safety to heart, which we know has other positive impacts on the culture in the organization. So that's what this area does, everything from finance to HR within the Connected Cities realm. And, we don't see ourselves necessarily shooting for a 5 in some of these. So as you're going through these, you go, oh, well, that seems like it's okay. You're probably fine. If we're sitting in the middle, some things being in the middle is fine. Being at a 1, probably not as good, but you'll see all the competing interests as you move through the different areas of the strategic plan.
Melissa, can I ask on
Yeah.
this one real quick?
Mhm.
On community engagement for projects?
Mhm.
I don't, maybe I'm wrong, if you can help me with this, but I thought there was some conversation about the city working on improving public communication or community engagement.
Yes.
And I know we do it on some projects, and I don't know how that decision tree works, but
Oh, we have one. We can bring it to you too.
awesome.
So write that down.
There's a person who actually is in that job, right? I remember it was posted for a long time, and they finally found somebody.
Yeah, his name is Michael.
It's
Michael Leos.
Oh, he's also the communications engagement guy? Or the community engagement?
He's part of all of that.
Okay.
Okay, so typically when we let capital projects, and Dave, jump in if you need to, but we will have part of the budget set aside for that. And so whatever team is coming to us should be bringing that with them, and we're looking at them and judging them on their ability to deliver. Before we start a project, we go to a decision matrix that we put together 2 years ago now, I think, Dave, right? It was right after I started here that summer, where depending on what's going on with the project, it seats itself for a certain level of engagement. And his team works, Dave's team, our engineering folks work on those big projects. When we have other things that don't fall into that, we'll go back to it. It's based off of something called IEP2. If you've heard of it, it's the International Public Engagement model that sits out there. So we've really been intentional about if there are certain triggers that causes a certain level of engagement. And then we also have to look at it in terms of our ability to deliver. So kind of one side of the spectrum is, everybody has a say, and the other side is Melissa decides. And so we have to decide where we can, at what level we can afford to do that, because it does cost.
Yeah.
And so we want to be very intentional that if we're going to engage people at a higher level of engagement, that we have the ability to do it and do it well. Because otherwise it's just false promises, right? So, but yeah, we can definitely bring that back. That would be, I think it would be interesting for you to see how, sort of where we're at and how we do that.
Yeah, I think it would be. I mean, because I was looking at this and thinking about that process and
Yeah.
in the budgeting as well.
Yeah, because when you dive into the project, you'll see that level of engagement that's chosen. Some might be important. And that happens with a lot of our regulatory projects.
Yeah.
They're behind the fence, we're, you know, we have build a digester or whatever it is, you know.
And the public can't come with pitchforks to tell you, no, you can't build that digester.
Well, they could. I mean,
Yeah, they could, but.
you've seen all kinds of things, so, yes, but, you
Okay.
know, yeah, so that's kind of how we set it up. So some of Trevor's stuff isn't as exciting, I guess, for engagement on, but I do like clean water.
Yeah.
So just me. Call me crazy. I don't like discharging pollutants back into the river. So anyway, so know that that's how we're doing it. We do have a prioritization matrix, and it was really intentional. We work with the city communications staff, which is Corey Wallace's group now. But with our team, and then our transportation planner, Jessica, and her crew, to set out how we do that. And so certainly we'll share that with you guys as we go forward. I think it would be a really interesting thing to see. And then maybe as we bring projects forward, we can share with you the level of engagement, so you'll have an expectation of what that'll look like as we go forward.
That'd be great.
Okay. Next one we have is facilities. Again, another one of our least glamorous activities, because it's sitting in here. And earlier, I think I heard the mouse munching. So this is our new world headquarters over here for MSO. Anyway, what I can tell you is that this is an area that gets overlooked for the city. Is our facilities that we run and manage. Things like City Hall, if you go in there, the wallpaper's peeling. It was done when it was built in the early 80s, and that's currently slated for renovation. And but we are sitting lower on this because we meet some pretty bare thresholds on that. We do some proactive maintenance, like we like to make sure your elevators work. So those types of things, and that our fire suppression systems are working where they exist. So, but just, you can kind of see what the difference would be on this one. Again, not the most exciting thing to the public. Go ahead.
Ask something about this one in particular.
Yeah.
I really liked the ones that could give me an idea, a sense of like the scope. If there's like any way to add to this one, like, and this is an estimated this many buildings we're talking about, or
Oh, sure.
sites.
Yeah,
would be,
absolutely.
I think helpful. Anytime you could put a scale to any of these is really helpful, especially as someone who's new to paying attention to what the city government's doing.
Yes. And to dive into this one more, I think we can also come in and talk to you about some of our facilities. And
I still want field trips.
okay, well, work on it, Katie. It's getting warm now. I wasn't gonna do that last week because that would have not been good. Building would have been a lot colder too. So, but definitely on this one, it includes everything from certain parks and recreation buildings. Not all of them. Parks and Rec takes care of a lot of their stuff, but then it picks up things like community health. We have an agreement with the county to maintain these, so it's an interesting, an eclectic mix of stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it includes the wastewater treatment plants as well?
No,
No, okay.
you know, it'll pretty much pick up general fund for the most part, but then it does pick up things like fire stations and police headquarters.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
But not necessarily, park shelters,
Hmm.
but it might help with a CIP. It's just, like I said, it's all over the place, and it's one of those things we're working to define. And in fact, we've talked about our asset management, and our inventorying of our assets. This is one area that hasn't been completed yet. So the Trevor stuff is very well documented, and a lot of the stuff Dave works on is very well documented. We have, our street PCIs, we've done LiDAR on our sidewalks, but our facilities, like, we probably can't tell you exactly what the vintage of the furnace is in here, unless it's been done within the last few years.
That perfectly illustrates the difference in this tool between a 2 and a 3,
Yes,
because they're at a 2 and his stuff is at a 3.
yes.
So that makes sense to my brain.
Yeah, so that's sort of how that works. But that's why I thought it would be nice to walk through this. because it is a little awkward. And we're doing it as people who use this stuff every day, so it's really not fair. When we're writing these, we try to use plain speak.
I thought it was very, very well done. I got really into it last night. I got super stressed out trying to balance it. It just really went on.
Well, the beauty of it is I only have this component to worry about, although I try to bring little nuggets through to keep other people outside of our department happy. So, and Trevor will tell you that's true too.
Melissa, can I ask one?
Yeah.
more? So I just saw on like the level 5, there's a 0 incident safety policy. Is there a reason why that can't be just default at any service level? Or is it because it's not just a policy, it means that there would never be any incidents?
Yeah, and I honestly, I went through all of these and they all dropped in about, I have way more of them than ones that are public facing. So just understand that. That is something I want to look at because that was kind of an interesting one that showed up there. To me, it melts my heart because again, where we were at 3 years ago to what I'm seeing today. And ultimately my goal for the city overall, because that's the level I try to manage to, is I want to see very little safety incidents, regardless of the public interacting with us or if you're an employee, right? And that all overall reduces our risk and that reduces costs over time. Yeah, and the insurance. So that's kind of where Melissa's at. I want everyone to go home happy and healthy, regardless of if you're here as a private citizen or if you're working for us.
Yep.
So, okay. So the fact that came up, that makes me happy. But it's not consistent. You're correct. So fiber and right of way is something that just in the last year or so that municipal services has taken over. Dave and his crew with the city engineering division have had to work with our fiber wherever it was placed before it was in IT, but it's really a utility. And we're getting around, we'll get there. We're not there yet, but we're trying to treat it as such.
That confused me.
In a different way, because it's a municipal utility. So we still have the ability to, be a little generous, but we also haven't managed our right of ways with a ton of intention over the last number of decades, I would say. And now Dave and his crew are getting to work with someone who's come out of a professional world to help us get where we need to be with right-of-way management, also our fiber that connects all of our plants, our water and wastewater plants, connects all of our streetlights, traffic signals, and other backbone infrastructure for the city that also is used by others. Dave, do you have any comments on that one?
No, it's a gap that we've had in the department for a long time and we're trying to make improvements. So it's not just the city infrastructure, the city has fiber network around the community. A lot of our buildings are hooked up, traffic signals.
We're on
So
it right now.
we can do coordination on traffic signals live without going out to this traffic signal within the box.
That's a good one to tour too.
So we're doing that, but also just maintaining private companies that come in and working on lease agreements and Google Fiber is coming to Lawrence this year. So we're trying to work with them on the regulations and cost sharing projects. Well, if you put in a conduit here, maybe we share a conduit and like those sort of things. So we're trying to kind of coordinate all that work, all that work. So with the private sector and then just the city stuff. So we have one person's kind of overseeing.
So you should feel sorry for them, is what I'm saying, because what you just described is living conditions job. We have one year.
We're writing a business plan.
Yeah, but we're working on the business plan for it.
So it's like, it's like there's literally fiber infrastructure that's being put in underground in the right of way. Okay.
Yeah, we've over the last 10, 15 years have been putting in fiber projects. We've got grant funding where we're redoing a corridor, we put in a conduit and sometimes we come back and blow in the fiber. And so we've got a lot of our buildings hooked up to it as well, but there's just an opportunity there too, there's with other private sector people putting in fiber with no reason to city has a fiber line, AT&T digs, Google Fiber digs, then so it's coordination of that as well too. But But yeah, and it's remarkable, just the technology. From when we started like 10, 15 years ago, the larger conduits and the fiber lines were even made them back then, but now they're getting the microfiber and splice it. I don't know all the technical things.
He's starting to get way outside my skis now.
Really, but we don't have a good inventory of where we put some of the stuff. It's just been put in, we force trade with companies. Over time, it's been, okay, someone in IT, it's been a combination of IT person, someone engineering will get grant money, and then IT does the technical stuff, and so we're trying to get that. That's all under this wireless fiber. So we're still working with other departments, trying to create like all these other plans, like we get to the street maintenance to have a 5-year plan, to also have like a 5-year fiber plan. What's next for us to finish our loop around town, and then you have redundancy if there's cuts. So like all of like the water treatment plants, the water plants, all the towers are hooked up to fiber. So
Lift stations.
but yeah, lift stations. So it's really lot there. So yeah, it's just working on policies and procedures for installation and maintaining.
So the next one here we have is levy maintenance, which is the one that everybody wants to pound on. This is the one that we got told needs a reduction, based on, balancing act last year. But I think it's just a lack of general understanding of what the levy is and what it does. And so that's another, a tour that I think would be really amazing for all of you. I mean, they're a giant lump of dirt in most instances. Sometimes they can have bits of it where it's actually a concrete structure, but there's a lot to that. And there's a lot of federal requirements around how we operate and maintain the levy. So we have a couple of staff that are assigned to that. And it also serves for our community, which is wonderful as a recreation space as well. Some places like where I used to work wouldn't allow it, and that was really frustrating because you could see this beautiful spot right by there. Oh God, couldn't use it because they're considered security, and they're both, right? So along the short of it is this one right now is being reviewed by the public, and I would just let you know that we will take care of this no matter how low it ranks. So we have some ideas.
It stressed me out because I thought this needs to be funded in 5. Like, how could we not have this up to 5? So
Well, and it does, we have to maintain it to a certain level so that the folks that are covered by the levy protected areas can get their national flood insurance. Or just maintain their homeowners insurance. So, yeah.
That's what I was wondering, is service level 1, is that the federal minimum? And is anything else above
No,
that just?
that one says
It
not
says-
in compliance. And you say since the
Oh, okay.
US Army Corps of Engineers, yeah, 2 gets you to,
Use the lowest. So getting back to your rec pass, like maintaining a trail on top of it would not be a 2.
Well,
Because
he's-
you're losing service level.
Yeah, I'm surprised that wasn't locked like some of the other ones that you really can't do anything about because it's outside the city's hands. Yeah.
I've argued that.
Yeah. it's
But,
huge.
but don't worry, again, we have ways.
Okay.
We will get there. But, the nice part is that, you know, we have great working relationships, with, the state and as well the feds, in this space. The Army Corps, I've been working with them for over 10 years, in both the communities I've been in, and Trevor's gone with me out to DC where we meet with them and talk about needs we have. And this one, as some of our new flood mapping will come out eventually here, we may have some work that we need to do on the levee. And if so, we'll be going to our federal partners to help us with that, which is great because they have programs to help local governments and levee districts. So anyway, just want to explain that, but we operate 17 miles of levee. So including Mud Creek, if you don't know where that's at. It's another fun one to research. And then the next one here is our project inspections. And I'll try to get going through these a little more quickly, but
That's seeing the same screen as we once were. Looks like it's the start menu.
oh, she must have hit something. Sorry, they're still seeing what Yeah, they're still seeing what I'm showing. So basically, what this is our inspection staff, that look at all the work that Dave and his team are putting into the ground. And we want to make sure that that's done per specs. We want to make sure that we're getting the right type of aggregate or whatever is supposed to be going in out there. If the pipe's not the right pipe, we want to know, and we want people out there on our behalf doing that. And this is one area where I see municipalities fall down a lot, and we've been beefing this up over the last couple of years, because once it's in and it's buried, we're done. So this is a big component of our work, and it's very critical to have the staffing in the space. So
If I understand it, are there two ways to go about this? You can either have a third-party contractor be essentially like the on-site observer, and that's like the city's trusted advisor, especially for like small towns, right?
Right.
And then in maybe larger cities, you have permanent people on staff, and this is all they do, like they are on site and they observe construction types. Is Lawrence kind of in the odd middle, where there's like no clear rules as to should we contract, should we do it in-house?
we're pretty intentional, I think.
Yeah, I think the majority of our work's done in-house, since we have routine, regular work every year, year after year. Some of it gets contracted out if we have more projects than we can inspect. So it depends, but the majority, we've got inspection staff that's certified and trained to do even federal aid projects. So we're lucky in that aspect, but really, yeah, that's a staffing thing where if we produce, then really we see the cost down the road. If we don't inspect something and we didn't get the right material put in, or
So you have to pay for contractors to do it, because they cost more, right?
yeah.
Well, and we're seeing that on some of the stuff that was done years ago here.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave's dealing with that every day. I mean, we have failures in spots where we shouldn't, because some of the material that was used long ago wasn't the right stuff or wasn't good. And the metro in general, once you get into Kansas City, there was a time period where some of the aggregate was not good. And so we have some of that here in town too. So,
Some of the contract sector, especially inspectors for like the wastewater construction problems.
Yeah.
yeah, that's not us.
It's the engineer's inspector on site.
Yeah.
24, every time something's going on, he's there.
Yeah, you'd have to be a pretty big city, I think, to have your own wastewater inspectors, I would assume, right? Like,
Although we have some pretty smart people.
It's interesting for hydrant maintenance, what's under us up here. I figured it was under the fire department. Thinking about LA fire and the hydrants not and whatnot. Oh, that was under the fire department there, and it had never, of course, we're in way here. I just didn't think that it was gonna be MSville.
I've both ways, okay, as you're noting. I think here we have it in our asset inventory, and it comes up as work orders to get, it's 2 or 3 years. Is that how I did them? Size and more hits. There's some increment to get out there. If something one that it'll kill her, and we'll go. So just so you know, but to know as that we're out trying to get, probably don't get them as often as we want to, but we're on the high.
Yeah.
Management, this is Dave's work. He's sitting at a, so they have massive load. This is a big CI. 5. 5, yeah. 5. Yeah. Anyway, there, and then close here, a lot of them. Street maintenance is one that is, oh wow, they didn't link it.
I think most of them were, but they
It didn't work. So one of the we about in terms of our key performance indicator around cost per landfill and our pavement condition index, the PCI. You guys probably this is something really important, because it's about our with treatment at the time to extend the asset and all shape over time. So what you see here is that we are sitting right now at a PCI, I think it's somewhere between
64.
Yeah,
236.
right. And so, yeah, not getting into visuals as fast. Work's been on our materials. We are starting that direction, which will help, but sort of our target, we feel more in the category. People are saying want us to keep investment in residents out of the survey. And for all that, we're in the area. This one, you're probably hitting the right treatment at the right time to extend the life of the asset. Dave, am I wrong? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're kind of shooting first. We kind of set our goal at 70, which would be right in the before. But we've the city hasn't fully funded the street maintenance program. So we're kind of losing ground a little bit. The more you lose ground, the more expensive it gets to catch up. So even if we're spending more the next 3 years, we could still drop a point or two before we actually see that improvement. So,
Is the corresponding category for things like trails and sidewalks under Parks and Rec? Or where is the maintenance?
Yeah, that's under the.
Or like, so one thing Hillary and I have been talking about is the snow clearing is pretty good if you're a vehicle, if you're a pedestrian or a bike or any other mode of transportation, it's pretty awful. Where is that in this plan?
It's not.
Okay.
Our snow removal, like the streets. Yeah,
That's it.
this
Yeah.
one here. Built in by, like, on the street.
Somewhere else.
That's when
But
there's
it's not their priority, it's to get the street clear for emergency vehicles and cars. You know.
Yeah.
what was the Parks and Rec something though? Was it under strong welcoming
Yeah.
neighborhoods maybe?
Strong
It's
welcoming
fine.
cities, but I don't know if they have snow. They have trails maintenance and stuff. I'm not sure.
I think that, I don't know if they were listening to they, so they do.
They would
They're-
fall
they
under
do
that.
clear- They clear like their nature trails and more students. I don't know if they call it out for where the service level is.
Yeah, I live right by the Burrows Trail and I'm always amazed because it's
Yeah.
way more clear than the roads.
The Burrows
Which
Trail
is
is
that's
clear,
my issue.
but the
But it's right in the sun too, so.
The plows move the snow so that they block access to the sidewalks. Like I saw mom walking her baby in the road on 19th because even though the section of sidewalk in front of the social service buildings was really clear, plow had dumped all the snow at the curb cut.
That's what
And so she couldn't access the sidewalk.
I mean, I've emailed you about my proposed sidewalk.
If we go down that,
It's a
we'll
different-
go down, that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother one. So,
Yeah.
there's no easy answer.
Did you find it?
So, yeah, unmistakable identity, that makes sense. Okay. So tech and assets is another one. So we have a group of folks, within our department that are primarily, most of it is dedicated to our GIS. So it's making sure our assets are appropriately cataloged and logged. If we touch something, things get updated. Dave does a project. Trevor's group does a project that we're updating all that. On the other side of the house is a software we use called CityWorks, and previous one Lucity. But anyway, very big systems that drive all of our preventative maintenance and help input data into the CIP, the capital improvements process. So this group is very important to us as well because they are helping keep up all the data for us in data visualization. So like when Hillary was looking at some of the mapping stuff, they're the ones that are doing that in concert with other staff. Traffic maintenance, that is another one that will show up as one of our emphasized key performance indicators going forward. And this one here is, of course, we've been doing a lot of work on replacing traffic signals, but it's that coordination to keep moving traffic efficiently across town, to make safe crossings for pedestrians and bicyclists. we do have a traffic control center where we can observe everything in real time at intersections, so. Pretty cool, very useful for, when we have emergencies or outages as well, so. Not in the building either. Operations, transportation planning, you guys know, probably, that division, work a lot on multimodal, and, things of that nature, but they recently joined us just about a year ago, so they are now part of, yeah, the MPO, and they're no longer in planning. And the nice thing is that pairs up really well working with Dave on capital projects and that team, so. We're very happy to have them, and they've added a lot. They've worked closely with us on the RAISE grant, for the ADA, and, other things like that. So it's been an amazing add for us. And then the last one, that we'll cover tonight, and then I'll, let you guys move on to the next item, is, our, school crossing guard program, falls in underneath of us, although we do not directly deal with this. Parking actually covers this for the city, but it is within the connected city environs. And this is always one of those ones that gets attacked because nobody wants to pay for it, whether it's the school district or the city, because one points to the other. But it always ends up being the city, so we run program.
This is another one that stresses me out because we can't get subs in schools. I'm a former teacher, so I'll be getting on that soapbox, but
Yeah.
can't get subs to teach the children. So how are you going to get a sub for the crossing guard? I want to know. So
Yeah.
that's really stresses me out.
$65,000 question, which is why I specifically didn't increase the funding for this one, because even if we did, you still can't find people to take these odd hours. And do it. We're gonna do Brad
Like
Harrell.
bus drivers.
Yeah,
Brad.
I just because like it's really hard to find actual people who do this.
Insane.
So anyway, that is what is in our portion of the balancing act, and of course, then you have the rest of the city, so. But do take the time, share it with your neighbors. It closes here in the next few weeks. It's a good way to help us prioritize spending, so you don't have to give them my color commentary, just, let them go for it, but wanted you to see how we went about developing those. One that's not in here right now is the airport. We have an airport advisory board as well, and that's under our purview as well. And we had to really sit there and think about that one. So it was a fun one to put together a balancing act sheet for. So
I know we're trying to move on. I just have one final overall question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how the public submissions will be taken into account. Is it like calling your legislators, and if you see a bunch of people wanting to fund this, you'll then move to fund that? How's that gonna work?
yeah, so as what they'll do is that'll be shared at the governing bodies. They have a retreat coming up the end of March, I believe, or first part of April, somewhere in there. The commission does. That information will be shared in aggregate when all pulled together and taken in, and then for the feedback. Now, we used what was submitted last year as a kind of a primer for us to start into the CIP and also the budget process this year. But the more people that take it, the better the data is, and the more reliability, obviously, we have on making sure that we're aligning our goals with that of the residents.
So people really need to get it there by mid-March.
Before spring break, the better.
Okay.
Came here.
Yeah.
Dylan's cool. I think it's Dylan's close.
It does the end of this month? I thought it was still further.
So the balancing act's open till February 20th.
Is that what it is? Just this week? I thought it was further. I apologize.
Couple questions.
Yeah.
Jump in. Okay.
Was it in the?
So I didn't see anything for wastewater, water treatment, waste management. I'm assuming there might be opportunities for operational savings in here. But I guess a lot of those probably require capital funding to implement. So is that maybe why they weren't included as things that obviously you could adjust? Already visible infrastructure.
There's rubrics for those women in the overall budget that, as Melissa mentioned earlier, this tool is geared towards the general fund right now.
Probably.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay.
so when you think water, wastewater, you're talking enterprise fund of water, wastewater rates.
Okay, that probably goes to my next question, which was I guess a little bit disappointed that you couldn't see utility rates as a knob. I guess even as maybe a suggestion. Well, I guess you can suggest whatever you want.
Yeah.
In the open
And
field,
those
but
those would be
Yeah, so I guess that's directly tied then to wastewater improvements, water, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense, okay. That's probably a little bit, it's,
on doing it in the future.
Yeah, they're planning on opening
Okay.
up further this, you know, the kind of
yes,
second full year of doing it, but
start with the public facing ones, I guess, and then
Right.
more.
the ones that are
Niche.
property tax and then the user ones,
That makes sense.
it's a little more complicated because there's things that if we don't do them, that may not sound interesting to the public. We'd be open for getting it.
Hmm.
So we just kind of have to watch that.
It's
Yeah.
too bad it can't stay open longer. That's not.
Well, I think it's the deficit that's driving the timing because we have to get ahead of it in order to be able to realize those savings by 1/1/26. So,
Totally makes.
yeah. Those are ongoing. It's an ongoing reduction of 6.5 million, not just still one time.
Virtually.
Yeah, structural deficit. Yes, thank you.
So it's fun to hear that word.
Yeah, I seem to hear it everywhere I work anymore. Local government.
Well, I know, I'm glad you said it that way, because that word wouldn't have made sense to me, but you explained it in plain language, that made sense to me, so actually.
Yeah, it is an ongoing need. So really what you're looking at is in most cases, most city general funds have a higher balance of FTE and then full-time equivalents. We're about 60% in the general fund, so that other 40 is other stuff. So just understand that like when you're looking at this stuff, depending on how you twist the knobs, that's you're saying, that will determine staffing to a certain extent, but not as much as it might at my last employer where it was like 90% FTEs in our general fund. So we're just set up a little differently, which is fine. So. But I've been holding back, just to give you guys an example, on filling some positions for over a year now. Simply because I could see this coming. And some of that has not been taken into account here, so we've already been writing about those positions filled. Simply because I'd rather eliminate a position with no one in it. To me, that seems safer and nicer and all those things. So as people have left, if it was a position I had duplication and I pulled it back if it was in the general fund. So, okay.
I have one more, I guess more of a comment. I was a little bit surprised that some of these, there wasn't a ton of transparency as to what was the baseline operating expense. So the golf course comes to mind specifically. It's like 22 million or something. And even if you decrease it all the way, it's still like 20 million. Like, what are we spending?
Well, and that's the tricky thing about this that I'll say, when I was doing it was frustrating me because how I would go in and surgically, reduce things. These are set up based on what I submitted in the ones that we're going through, like, so, Trevor, Dave, and we all agreed that this was like, if you're gonna drop from a service of 3 to a 2 to a 1, and at a 1, you had to be in compliance still, or if you were out of compliance, had to say it, right? And that's some of the fine tuning we're still doing on this. So really, there shouldn't be a level 1 in levy. If in theory, we've accepted a federal asset, we should be maintaining it at their minimum, right? That's not how that one was done, just as an example. Okay,
That
so,
should be a level 0 for the golf course, like.
Yeah, that's negative.
right, and we just did internal services internally, as an executive team for the city. And that was really interesting too, because again, I could only twist, like, sometimes I wanted to ratchet it to one way or the other, and I could only ratchet it a half.
But also the golf course, they have revenue, which I'm not sure
Right.
the revenue offsets being reflected.
No, and that's like,
Yeah.
it's pretty high. I was actually shocked at how high it was. I think it's closer to 80, but I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
Then, peace,
It
they're
says-
good on their own, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to be paying for their pro golf club, whatever.
I understand.
We need to conserve our water for one thing.
We're
But-
working on that. We're working on that. Right, Trevor?
Yes.
Yeah.
See strong feelings here, sorry.
Yes. So anyway, I hope that was interesting little foray through that. Just so you kind of understand how we're putting our lenses through stuff, and as that feedback comes in, whatever we're given, we'll go in and say, okay, well, we're being told to take this down. Now levy, if it holds the way it is, we're supposed to, annihilate it. Well, that's not gonna happen. What we'll do is we'll take it out of the general fund And I guess for some reason it was moved out of the stormwater fund. It's gonna go back in. And we're working on a whole new vision on our stormwater rates anyway because of better data that we have moving forward. So it'll be okay. It's just odd that that got placed where it was. I don't know the history of it, but we'll work through it. So.
Any other comments from commissioners or?
I would have been like to be able to turn the revenue knobs too.
Yeah, and that's a future one too, I think, as well. You can do that with that software, can you? You know more about it than I do.
You can do property tax, sales tax, and something else.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything else.
No.
I was just gonna suggest you may want to check on the guys on the screen.
Yeah, commissioners, board members, Reza and Bukowski. Do you have any questions, comments?
No, I've used the tool before, before the
Oh,
meeting, and then
you're
I
on
saw the agenda. Mine,
He's not here.
can you hear me now?
It's a two on volume.
It's
I
working
put it
out.
in chat.
Ryan,
hear
wanna
me
say
now?
something?
Am I good?
She's like,
So maybe
Don't
it's
think
just-
so. Is that better?
There we go. Sorry,
Okay.
Ryan.
No, you're fine. I used the tool when it went live, and so I saw it on the agenda and I was like, oh, great. It's a fantastic tool. I'm a big fan. So, nothing.
It's coming through my computer.
Try again, Ryan.
Oh, you're fine. I saw the tool on the agenda and I had already used it that submitted something, so I was like, okay, this is great. I'm a big fan. I think it's really awesome form of transparency in our local government. So nothing besides that to add.
Great, thank you. Mike, anything, you have questions, comments?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you very much for that walkthrough. I too filled it out before today, so yeah. Already saw it, but definitely good stuff. Good to get people to participate in that kind of budgeting exercise, especially when it's such a tight set of parameters that people may not necessarily know about.
Any public comment? Hope you all. Hearing none, shall we move on to agenda item 3, update on studies?
I've just wanted to let you know that the North Lawrence Corridor study went live on our bidding site this last week. So it's out there and thought you guys would want to know that. It's pretty exciting. We're looking forward to seeing who submits on that, and then we'll go through a process and then talk about engagement. This one is really high up on the engagement side. So a lot of the monies that are allocated in that study is for the engagement. So it'll be an interesting process. So yeah. So that's the one update that we had there. Is there anything else?
I had a couple of, land development code is Corn Planning Commission on Wednesday. That's on their agenda. I know there's folks that might be interested in looking at that.
What is it going up for? Because it's already adopted? Is it?
The text amendment.
Oh, all the additional stuff? Okay, so as somebody who's on the steering committee, I'm kind of surprised they never brought that up with us, but maybe now the consultant's gone, they're like.
Well, they're back to do these amendments.
Trevor's been very busy.
They posted a red line version, so it's very easy to.
I kind of am surprised there wasn't any communication on that at all. Like if any member of the public would have seen it, it probably would have been me. So that's interesting. That wasn't anywhere.
Yeah, I think it just got finished when they posted that agenda. I want to say Thursday. But I want to make you aware of that. Another study that the city has some staff sitting on the Walker's corridor study that the county's leading to the open space plan. I don't know if you're all familiar with that or not, but they've contracted with the planning firm Biohabitats to kind of work on a corridor conservation map and planning strategy. They just had the kickoff meeting last Friday.
You know, Trevor's my designee.
Yeah, so I'm sitting on that. The Parks and Rec designee is sitting on that, and the planning department staff, or as well as Kathy, the sustainability office as terms of the city. At the table, there's plenty of others that they've invited to participate. other stakeholders as well.
Sorry, when you say Walker's Corner, Walker's to the river or the drive?
Walker's River.
Okay.
From the outlet to Eudora.
Okay, because I know for a while there was talk of extending Walker's a drive also
Yeah.
way through the county that the county was very excited for.
Yeah. This came out of their county open space planning.
Okay.
Yeah, which, I was getting familiar with it when I was at that meeting.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
I came from that committee.
Okay.
Very exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I'm excited to see what they do.
But there's been a few articles in the paper about that, so figured I'd mention it since we had some folks our areas sit in on that group. I must mention the stormwater rates. That's something we'd like to bring back to you guys later as we work through that. That's looking at our equivalent residential units, which are our ERUs, how you get billed for stormwater at the residential multifamily layer. We've gone through basically modernizing our code and going with the current best practices. A lot of that hadn't been updated since 1996, so there's a lot of GIS work going behind the scenes, and then we also have a consultant we're working with on some of that. But we should have some pretty good information to share in the next few months. I kind of figured April or May, and it'd be our plans to roll that out for an engagement education type stuff, and then potentially take effect next January 2026.
I don't think I have anything else unless Dave has anything else he wants to add. Okay. Figured we'd give you those updates. Awesome. And then another update that's non-related to a project is we are going to try the transit station for the next meeting.
Thank you.
We'll see how it works. And they do have a hard out by 8.
Okay.
Because they closed the facility down then.
Yeah.
So we'll get you information on that. There's limited parking, so that's why I'm saying we'll try it. So
What is the space like? Cause I was just thinking that, like, for example, in this room, if we had like even 4 or 5 more people.
I can speak to that because I
Yeah,
was on
thank you.
the
That's
Public
one of
Transit
the
Advisory
concerns,
Committee.
is
Yeah.
Got lots of
the
room.
actual completion.
I think it's rated for 15 but seats 25 uncomfortable. I've been in there in the uncomfortable side. So,
We just started at the top, it's so fancy at the other spot, so.
Because the city commission room, there's like a timeline on when that will be difficult to be available, right? Because aren't certain things undergoing reconstruction, or no, the whole planning department is now out of Riverfront.
the problem is we lost all of Riverfront.
Okay.
And then at the same time, we moved in municipal court. And that was the big impact, guys. So
Because they were there too.
so the number of night spots available that don't come into conflict with
With the court, I guess, right?
court. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not always at night or anything like that, but it's just, it made it really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So that's why thought we'd try it here. I mean, we're obviously learning our new AV. This all just got installed in the last 2 months for us here. This building was basically mothballed up until about 6 months ago when Trevor's staff moved in and we kicked him out right away when we found we had to City Hall.
It was not this nice. But
Yeah, when they were here, it was not nearly as nice. They painted it. This wasn't the color, but got some different carpet in, got rid of some asbestos, and then so.
In 6 months, that's impressive.
Well, no, we did that in 2 months. Yes, so, and then we share with our solid waste companions, the ones that do all of our container maintenance and roll-off work, come in and out of.
There's a big warehouse.
So last week, there's 22 solid waste trucks parked in this warehouse.
Yeah, they're not.
Don't ask me how they got them parked.
A jigsaw puzzle. Oh my gosh. I'm glad I wasn't out there. I've been in work, but, so we're in here and while our campus gets built and they were pouring footings on that. I think before it got real cold where they were trying to, and then slabs. So we're headed into the phase where, things are really gonna start hopping out there, on the adventure parks.
There's a live feed of the construction of the. Really?
Yeah.
When is it slated to be done?
Spring 20 or summer 26, fall 26, somewhere in there.
Well,
So we're here for a while.
So it's going to consolidate a lot of MSO stuff, right? So everything that was in Riverfront, I guess, was kicked out prematurely, or that was that more planning and development?
No, that had to do with a tenant landlord dispute.
Okay, gotcha.
So
Okay.
that then created an urgency for, I just volunteered us, which, you know, people can hate me, but I volunteered our group to exit because we really don't have that much direct interaction with the public.
Yeah.
Some of our folks have to run stuff back and forth over there for us. So I figured it was best that we leave, and we had this space and a few others that are even less desirable, so.
Like the road maintenance building at what, like Fourth and Pinckney, I forget what the fifth.
That's traffic, that's traffic, that's where we go visit traffic, so that one would get vacated, that whole work, which is the sign shop and all that will move out.
And then all the maintenance stuff.
Also by the water plant on the backside down there by the servo plant, there's some buildings that will vacate. Then off of Love and
Yeah,
Haskell.
got a couple of yards there.
Yeah, we'll go, but parks,
Floodwood, so.
Floodwood.
that is-
So it's fine for the horticulture department, not so much for the solid waste and fuel station.
exactly.
Yeah.
Probably nothing should really be in there at this point, but that's neither here nor there. And then maybe over time, but we have household hazardous waste in our facility sitting up on another, but they're not currently slated to go. I think that was a monetary issue where we just ran out of money. But yeah, it's a huge undertaking that's going on right now. I have meetings quite frequently, and as does Trevor, going over sort of what they're doing and how they're speccing everything. But right now, our garage folks, our fleet maintenance folks, and our solid waste folks are getting to help design their new spaces, which is, yeah, and they all thought it would never happen. So the fact that they're getting to sit and have these conversations is pretty cool. So
Cause they're
Yeah.
phase two, it'll be sister facility, but they're starting that one. We're
overlapping.
overlapping.
Nice.
I'm calling it 1.5
Right.
phases. Because I promised one. When I came in, I said, I'll figure out how to get this down to one. I didn't quite have all the math and alignment, but we were able to work with the commission. Get it going. So,
28.
yeah, they're in
Everything's
28.
done in 20.
Yeah, we were looking at starting some in 2030. 5 phases originally, so.
That's great.
Good stuff. Lots of, you know, environmental sustainability aspects being added into the building too, so. Where none of these have any of it, it's pretty bad, so. And we'll liquidate some of these properties as well, so. Which will be nice. I'm not sure what's happening to this one exactly, but see how they can incorporate all the functions that we have. And that's all I had is, we'll give out the new location. We'll send out an update. We are meeting on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. So if you're in Green and you need to go for a beer afterwards, I understand. But we will meet then.
5:30.
That'll be 5:30 as well.
Is there a Zoom link that's spring break?
Yep, absolutely. We'll have Zoom again. And I understand spring break. My kid's overly bummed because I'm not going anywhere. So they stay home.
Yeah. Any thought been given to a retreat possibly? I don't know when we last talked about it. It was November or December, but is that still a potential option given that we're kind of a totally reorganized board with the?
It is.
Okay.
Would you want the tours or retreat first?
Honestly, I feel like the retreat, like with a tour as part of it, but not all of them. Just to kind of get the basics down, like define our scope, figure out bylaws, you know, get a plan for the year, and then kind of like plot out when those visits could be. That's just my personal idea. I'm the chair. So
Yeah.
what do y'all think?
I think that's great. And I love the idea of tours too. I think particularly it's like a lot of us are learning the wastewater stuff. We've verbalized that and felt things. And then, and also, but I agree with you. I think sort of nailing down the byline. Or the bylaws. I guess it's just a matter of timing when we would do it, and also the spatial question, I think, too. But if we could do it in, I don't know, wastewater treatment plant, awesome. I mean, I don't know.
It's been in the Carnegie Building in the past, and also the Santa Fe Depot.
Yeah,
Nice.
I don't know if those are still available, but those were used in the past at
yeah,
least.
they're available. They're just not good setups for public access generally, so.
There's the library, I guess.
I guess
That's
the
it.
depot is, it just depends on if they ever rent out, so.
So what would we do? Like send out a survey link for time to do it, or what do you think?
There's been a planning committee in the past, or subcommittee, I guess, made of usually like the chair, maybe one or two other people who would work directly with the staff liaison to try to figure out who's gonna facilitate. It's usually somebody else. Like in the past, it was like Scott McCullough, like the director of planning, or
Okay.
Jeff Craig. I think Jessica did it 1 year. Like it's usually somebody who isn't an MSO who
Okay.
would run it. And then we would do stuff like kind of like a history lesson to bring everybody who's relatively new and those who are not new, who forget things, back up to speed of like, what have we done in the past? What are the plans? How did we get here? Who are the various movers and shakers? Maybe introduce a specific department or function that we don't see very often, but relate to, like transit if Adam was still here. And then maybe do like goal setting thing of like, here's what we think we want to do as topics for meetings coming up, study sessions, agenda items, stuff like that, that we're going to have to intersperse with the work that kind of can't be put off, like checking design plans, going over the budget. So the agenda is going to be a combination of both those things. Like we want to talk engineer design standards, something like that. And then now we have to talk about buildings.
So do we want to establish a planning committee right now, or what do you guys think?
Well, so I just would like to add about that, I think you're going back to your question of would we prioritize a retreat or a tour? And hearing that and being really new, I could really benefit from that sort of history, like catch you up to speed. Here's the background knowledge stuff. And so I would prioritize the retreat, whatever it looks like, but also with balancing it against, we never want to do something just for the sake of like, that's how it's been done before, especially not when we have restructuring in a whole new situation here. So I would want to be clear on that as a guiding kind of point as well. But yeah, I mean, we could set up a committee for it if that's fine, if that's needed.
Or what I could do is look for some times, like for staff, and then get with Hillary, and then we can get something out as like a doodle poll or whatever to you guys. I think it's probably, we can do that easily, and just figure out what works.
Because the way subcommittees, all that.
Yeah,
Tours are a little tricky too with groups, because I know this group counts as a meeting, so
yeah.
typically when I do tours with the commissioners and stuff, it's just two of them at a time.
Oh,
With other
okay.
people.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal for us planning ones.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's just more about your time. Those facilities are open 24 hours a day, but more staff is there at certain times of the day. And when they're smaller groups, they're actually better to repeat.
Yeah.
You see it all and ask all the questions you want.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, maybe instead of us going as a body, like, oh, maybe we just pile up and, get with each other and you for a scheduled tour during a weekday or
We'll
something.
talk about it tomorrow. We have our staff meeting. We'll talk about what ways we could do it. Because we have a variety of different things that we might want to show you, and so figure out what those are. Whether it's, something with our field staff, how we do things there with our, lines and street maintenance and all that, or if it's, plant tours, all kinds of different things we can do, so.
I think there's a lot to see every department, and we're spread out, so whether you want to spend the full day or half day, and then it's really working through which facilities you guys are interested in, and that's kind of what we do. So it's like, oh, we can get to those for 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, there's all these different ways the city's connected, and that's.
Getting that list is something that would probably be good at a retreat, honestly.
Yeah,
Let's
for
where
sure.
we're gonna go.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I realized I was remiss when I was just spouting off recollections about the retreat that day. You're the one who organized it 4 or 5 years in a row. Any comments? Any thoughts? What I miss?
Well, I think as we did those retreats with MMTC, having that work plan or whatever at the end of it, or having like, this is what we plan to work on, when we did the early days or the first couple years, I'm saying, We didn't have like a product at the end. Not that they weren't bad retreats at all. They were
Yeah.
really good discussions. So I mean, I always saw the retreats as one is getting to know everybody.
Yeah.
Without being at a public meeting in city commissioner room, which was always beneficial. And then two, like, okay, we're all going down the same path, but this is the schedule, the work plan, what we know is coming. And then if there was some policy or some interest that the board had that we could maybe tackle that year, whatever it was scooters or things that, back then was being talked about,
Mhm.
we would, so that's what I thought was beneficial. And then we said, hey, this is what our work plan is. And
Yeah. It was helpful to preload the calendar that way, at least.
yeah, that was helpful with MMTC, what would be helpful.
I did like that we always had a calendar for the year, sort of, and we moved it as we needed
Yeah,
to.
adjusted.
Yeah, but it was like, okay, in this month, we're going to talk about this, and it's hard, I know that things change too. Anyways, yeah.
We know for next month, we do have transit as an item that they're going to bring forward, and then I'm trying to track down first got authorization.
Who's running transit now?
Right now it's Felice.
Okay. That's right.
She's the interim director and she has something she wants to bring. So.
Cool.
Yep.
Anything else?
So thank you for trekking up here
Yeah.
today, and thank you for the folks online.
I have to adjourn us formally, guys. So, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn the meeting by, first by Commissioner Andrews. Is there a second? By Commissioner, all those in favor? Say aye.
I've got eyes online.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye, online.
Bye.
Oh, more.